Okay, happy New Year's everybody, and welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a really awesome review to kick the year off right from KUOE Kyoto out of Japan. But before we dive into that, let's get a quick customary wristwatch check. As you guys can see today, I do have on my Seiko SPB411 navigation timer reissue, which I've been wearing a whole heck of a lot to close out 2023. But with that said, let's go ahead and see what's inside here. Okay guys, so the brand KUOE Kyoto was founded back in 2020 out of Kyoto, Japan, and they're a Japanese micro brand focused on creating small, modern, vintage-inspired watches with a distinct antique-like aesthetic. Now, in terms of the type of watch, I'd consider this an everyday dress watch. Of course, you're going to be looking for that versatile blend of both sporty and dressy attributes when it is something that you'd want to wear every day, but this really harkens back to a time where the dress watch was the everyday watch, and it is very true to that, especially in terms of its scale at just 43 millimeters. This is their Royal Smith 90-008 in the silver and gold colorway, and it is inspired by watches from the 1940s, and it also has this beautiful cushion case as well as a set of Breguet-like numerals. You can get this for $690 direct within this particular configuration on the bracelet from KUOE Kyoto. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay guys, what a beauty. Let's go ahead and just check this out. Look at that dial. Let me try to get as close as I can just to show you guys just the level of detail in just the grainy texture of this dial. Also, those hand individually applied indices are very, very impressive. Now, this is going to be a 34.3 millimeter diameter, 11 millimeters thick, 41 millimeters lug to lug, polished 316L stainless steel. You're going to get a double dome sapphire, so you can see at harsh, angles, still quite distortion free. Really only at those outer edges are you going to start to see things be represented as just slightly out of focus, but man, that thing is sharp. Look at that dial. So you do have a push-pull crown that's here that is also signed, and check out that kind of buzzsaw style, very old school, and absolutely does do the job. So very impressive from that perspective. Now, one of the really cool things is you do get, for the Japanese watch, you get a Japanese movement. Let's give it a quick little wipe here off camera, just so you guys can get a nice viewing angle of that case back. There you have it. Check that out. Now, although they didn't do too much extra to the movement, lucky for you guys, that Miyota 9039 is already, pretty well decorated. Very handsome. You can see the striping, and then of course you do have that gold text that's been added. This is a great movement, guys. 48-hour power reserve, 4 hertz, 28,800 vibration per hour beat rate. So nice and smooth, and you do get to see the movement, which is great. Now, in terms of that dial, guys, let's go ahead and just breathe that in. So apply numerals, also those little pieces there around that outer minute track, also applied. Very, very nice. That grainy, textured, creamy dial, really, really handsome. And of course, the high polished finishes on that gilded, contrasting pop of just beautiful buttery color there. So very, very nice. Also, you're going to be getting 5 atmospheres or 50 meters of water resistance, and that's as long as the crown is pushed in. Now, here's one of the things that's going to be tough, especially for you, those of you with larger wrists. Those of you with smaller wrists, rejoice. This is going to be great for you. But for the rest of us, 18mm lugs, so that does make it a little bit more questionable in terms of if it's going to be able to be comfortable on the wrist. I mean, I think it looks beautiful in the hand, but I would say in the metal, when you put it on wrist, it could also tell quite a different story. But you can see this beautifully well done brushed and polished beads of rice with a straight end link there, so very true to form. You're also going to have some nice, you can see there, quick release spring bars. You get the milled push button clasp there with 3 positions of manual micro adjust. So with that said, let's actually get this piece on wrist and see how it wears. Okay guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, this wears surprisingly well, and it could be a bit of a camera trick. Of course, if I do get my wrist a bit too close to the camera, it's going to make there be just a slight distortion in terms of the perspective, and it's going to make it seem much larger than it actually is. So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low here, and then just bring in the frame ever so slightly so you guys can still get a more detailed look, but just while keeping a bit of a truer aspect ratio. And you can see that just fits beautifully. And although I do have a larger wrist at 7.5 inches, it is quite round, as you can see. So it's not like it's super flat and wide. It definitely is, you know, it's something where I'm actually quite you know, aware of lug to lug and how certain things sit on the wrist. And although this sits really, really beautifully, it is something that I do have to consider. Man, look at that. Look at the way it's very, very classic. And this is obviously something that's coming back into style. You have guys like Timothy Chalamet that are even wearing women's modeled Cartiers. So that whole vintage style thing is definitely coming back with not just the look, but also the size wise. And even for my larger wrist, I have to say this is surprisingly wearable. I would definitely recommend, though, to wear this with a long sleeve shirt just to make sure that it just goes again with that dressier, dressed up aesthetic. And I think it'll look great. And that's something I think a lot of folks who do tend to be a little bit more on the dressy side of maybe business casual at work might be looking for, right? Is something that is going to look right underneath that cuff, peeking out from underneath. There's nothing worse than seeing a big old oversized watch just, you know, crowding around that cuff. You know, when you are wearing a long sleeve shirt. So it is nice to see something like this that will just tuck beautifully and lay and peek out and really give you something that I think just makes sense. So although there are no, you know, there's no loom on here, we can still get in some, you know, low light transition and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. All right, no loom, but as you can see, this thing is just magical in the transition. One thing I always like to work out is just a bit of a low light transition, because you're always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. It may even include a bit of harsh lighting, which typically could expose any types of production defects, but all you're going to see really is how much that dial is coming to life. Wow. Just gorgeous, guys. And of course, you're going to see the nice, you know, deep luster of those high polished accents, and then some nice satinized brushing over the bracelet. So this is really, really well put together, guys. You know, not quite grand Seiko level or anything like that, but I would say it's up there. I would say it's comparable to the build quality of some of the really premium Presage models. And of course, you're also going to be getting that nice slim movement with that higher beat rate, which is just fantastic, guys. Woo! What a looker this one is. So closing thoughts from me, guys. On the wrist, the scale is true to vintage, you know, in terms of those inspirations, which is nice. I think as a whole, it just fits that whole theme, and they really commit, which I can appreciate, even though it does kind of size me out in a lot of ways. But let me know in the comments below if you thought, hey, maybe it looked better than I thought on my wrist. So again, I would suggest for those of you that do have larger wrists that you would probably want to wear this with a long sleeve shirt, just because you can match that dressier, more diminutive sizing. Now, in terms of model variants, it's also available with silver accents instead of the gold, or you can get it, of course, with a gold tone case to match these numerals and hands. And then in terms of comparable models, you know, this is uniquely well spec'd for the size range and, you know, to a certain degree, the price point as well. So it's hard for me to think of a direct comparable, but let me know if you can think of anything down in the comments below that you would probably compare to something like this in terms of, you know, capturing that heritage. I would say the closest thing might be something from Longines in terms of just really focusing on those, you know, that kind of reissue style. Although this is not a reissue, they've made these watches from the ground up. Of course, they are an amalgamation of the time, of the era, not particular references, but just the feel, the vibes. And I think they really, really nail that. And I'm hoping that we'll see more and more coverage of KUOE, Kyoto in the future, all over YouTube. And let me know if there's any of their other models that you want me to kind of reach out and ask them about. So for me, guys, the bottom line, small wristed enthusiasts rejoice because KUOE Kyoto are offering some seriously well executed watches well under $1,000. Again, under $700. This one's $690, and that's if you want it on the bracelet. If you don't want a bracelet and you can just get it on the straps, you'll save even more money. So I'd be thrilled if they started offering pieces in the 38mm range with 20mm lugs. I think that would probably get me over the hump in terms of any of my reservations. But other than that, other than scale, you know, I really have no reservations. I would say proportionally, these are immaculate. There's a lot of thought, a lot of care into these designs, and you can just see it. So with that said, let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.